Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss the Buster Sword of FF7. The Buster Sword is one of the most iconic weapons of FF7. I will give an overview and history of the Buster Sword, so please enjoy it until the end. Let's take a look at the Buster Sword. About Buster Sword. Buster Sword is Cloud's initial equipment, a large sword. It's a very large and simple-looking sword with a much wider blade than ordinary swords. Designs vary slightly from piece to piece. In FF7 and FF7R, the design is rugged, but in CCFF and FF7AC, the brim is changed to gold. Cloud appears to be carrying the Buster Sword on his back because his shoulder armor has magnets attached to it to which the Buster Sword is attached. The Buster Sword belonged to his late best friend Zack and is very important to Cloud. It's the weakest weapon of the initial equipment in FF7, so it will soon be replaced by a new sword. However, in FF7R, it can be strengthened, making it a weapon that can be used until the end of the game. The menu screen explains that the sword is a large sword that has been passed down from generation to generation, carrying the thoughts of those who fight. This is a great description for FF fans. Because of this history and its striking appearance, the Buster Sword is the most popular initial equipment in the FF series. History of Buster Sword. The Buster Sword is a sword that Cloud inherited from Zack, which Zack also inherited from Angeal. Let's take a look at the history of the Buster Sword along with stories of past owners of the Buster Sword. Buster Sword's first owner was Angeal Hewley of Soldier First. As Zack's senior and best friend, he took great care of Zack.
Zax. Huh? 夢を持て。ああ？英雄になりたければ夢を持つんだ。そして誇りも。
Angeal only carries the Buster Sword on his back and does not use it.
その剣使ってるところ見たことないぞ。まじない専用なんてもったいなくないか？
使うと汚れる、かける、すり減る。そっちの方がもったいない。
マジで言ってんの？
ああ、俺は貧乏症なんだ。
This line alone might make you think, what an old man, but there is Angeal's hidden thought in this line. He comes from a poor village and had a poor childhood. Buster Sword was bought for him by his adoptive father, who worked hard to buy it for him. His care for Buster Sword is also an expression of his love for his adoptive father. He looks up to his hard-working father and feels bonded to him by being a hard worker himself, and feels that Buster Sword is a symbol of pride. Even with such a Buster Sword, there are scenes where Zack uses it in a pinch.
また一つ貸しだ。目が泳いでいたぞ。
そう。それより、その剣欠けちゃったりしたんじゃないの？
剣よりもお前の方が大切だ。ほんの少しな。
He later turned out to be a Project G experiment, and his body gradually turned into a monster. He becomes desperate when his body suddenly sprouts wings, but his pride keeps him rational.
たとえどんな状況でも、俺は誇りを持たなくてはいけない。このバスターソードが共にある限り。
But he struggles with his existence and finally becomes a complete monster. He entrusts his junior and best friend Zack with killing him, fights and dies. Note that the cross-shaped scar on Zack's face is the result of this battle. This scar can be attributed to the influence of the Japanese comic, Rurouni Kenshin.
ザックス、よくやった。あとは頼む。 誇りを忘れるな。
Zack inherits from Angeal the Buster Sword, a symbol of his dreams and pride. Zack grieves the loss of his best friend, but decides to move forward with Angeal's thoughts in his heart. And in his relationship with Cloud, his junior and friend, he begins to see himself in Angeal in the past. To stop the runaway Sephiroth, Zack fights him but is defeated. However, Cloud takes the Buster Sword in hand and repels Sephiroth by surprise. Severely injured, Zack and Cloud have Genova's cells implanted in their bodies and are turned into experimental subjects. 5 years later, Zack regains consciousness and successfully escapes while carrying a dazed Cloud, and continues on to Midgar. But when Zack is overtaken by a horde of Shinra soldiers, he hides himself in the Cloud and fights the battle alone.
夢を抱きしめろ。そしてどんな時でもソルジャーの誇りは手放すな。いらっしゃいませ。
They get dirty when you use them, and the blades wear in a braid. That's why I only use a peak strike, says Zack. He fought only with attacks that struck his opponents with the belly of the blade, without using the blade part of the Buster Sword to protect the pride of his late best friend. As proof of this, you can see that he is holding the sword in the opposite direction in this scene. Just as Angeal used the Buster Sword to help him in a pinch, Zack fought for his good friend Cloud with the Buster Sword. But Zack is mortally wounded in this battle.
俺の誇りや夢、全部やる。俺がお前の生きた証。
Zack entrusted his dreams and pride to his living proof. Inheriting Zack's will, Cloud begins the story of FF7 with the Buster Sword on his back. But Cloud is fighting using the blade part of the Buster Sword, possibly due to the effects of memory tampering under the influence of Genova's cells. Because of this background, Angeal and Zack carry their weapons on their backs with the blade facing down, but Cloud carries them with his blade facing up. In FF7 AC, which takes place 2 years after FF7, Cloud uses a different weapon, and the Buster Sword appears as Zack's tombstone. In both scenes where the Buster Sword is handed from Angeal to Zack and from Zack to Cloud, it is raining, as if the Buster Sword is crying. However, in the last part of FF7 ACC, the Buster Sword is enshrined in the church in the slums, and the light shines on it. It's as if Buster Sword is staged to smile. The Buster Sword is a weapon with a long history of overcoming the deaths of fighters and carrying on their thoughts. Other works of Buster Sword. Buster Swords have appeared in other works besides FF7, and Buster Swords from various works are presented here. Final Fantasy IX. When you examine the sword hanging on the wall of the arms shop in Lindblum, you will hear the line, "There once was a guy with a big sword like this, and his hair stood on end." It's nice to hear a line like this that reminds of Cloud. Final Fantasy X. Although it did not actually appear in FF10, it was planned to do so in the planning stages. Therefore, there is a record of Buster Sword in the database. Final Fantasy XII. One of Gilgamesh's weapons. But it's not a real one but a fake named Buster replica. If you look closely at the blade, it says fake in Japanese. I think it was modeled after Cloud's Buster Sword, as it has a hole to attach the materia. Lightning Returns. Final Fantasy XIII. It was appear in this work as DLC. This sword is easy to knock out enemies. Final Fantasy XIV. It appears when using Braver in Blade Dance. It's a very cool technique, reminiscent of one of Cloud's techniques, Braver. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. It's one of the weapons that can be purchased from the beginning of the game. Soldier and warriors can learn Mind Break, and Dragoon can learn Dragon's Charm. In FFTA2, Spellblade can learn Blood Price. Final Fantasy Explorers. It will be available as DLC along with Cloud Clothes. It's a large sword with a support function that reduces AP consumption. Kingdom Hearts. Cloud appears on KH and uses a bandaged Buster Sword. A Keyblade called Metal Chocobo also appears, but its rugged design is inspired by the Buster Sword. Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Appears under the name Buster Sword 7 inches and allows you to use Cloud's exclusive technique, Braver. The Buster Sword CCFF7 will also be available as Zack's weapon, and he will be able to use the Rush Assault. In addition, the Buster Sword HCCFF7 will be available as an Angeal weapon. Angeal, Zack, Cloud, and the closer the Buster Sword is to the original, the higher the attack power. There is also a sword called Buster Sword KH. Air Guys. Cloud and Zack appear in arcade mode and use the Buster Sword. Buster Sword will also appear in quest mode. The Square Millennium Collection Veer features Cloud and Sephiroth on the disc and a Vincent figure as a bonus. This is just like FF7. Just Cause 3. Buster Sword appears as an Easter egg. It's stuck in the cliff of a steep snowy mountain and can't be pulled out. Terraria. The Breaker Blade weapon, a huge sword with high knockback, is said to be inspired by the Buster Sword. Buster Sword has appeared in games other than those introduced here, and is a familiar in Japanese games. Short episode of Buster Sword. Here are a few short episodes of Buster Sword. In the initial concept of FF7, Cloud was tentatively set up as a Dark Knight. The Buster Sword is said to have been smaller and thinner than it is now, and was set up with a chain attached to its handle. The Buster Sword was designed with the image of a block of silver, and was called a big knife at the time of its creation. Cloud is said to be modeled after the Japanese swordsman Musashi Miyamoto. The motif of the Buster Sword is said to be the ore sword used by Musashi in duels. In FF7 AC, Cloud uses a different sword, but in the pre-release trailer he is seen using the Buster Sword. In FF7 AC, Buster Sword is Zack's tombstone. However, in FF7 AC Complete, flowers are blooming on Zack's grave. When Denzel saw this place, he asked, "Is this someone's grave?" Cloud replied, "This is where our heroes departed from." The yellow flowers that bloom here are said to be daisies, and the flower language is just as you are and is said to represent the sun. Zack's swimwear has a pattern that appears to be daisies and suns. The name Zack Fair means clear skies and sunshine. Daisies can be said to be the flower that symbolizes Zack. I think the scene where yellow flowers bloom around the Buster Sword enshrined in a church and the sun shines through it is a famous scene that expresses Zack's pride. I look forward to seeing how Zack will be portrayed in the second and third FF7 remakes. One of the appeals of FF is that you can get a glimpse of various dramas just by looking at Buster Sword. Did you enjoy this video? I really wanted to talk about this story because both FF7 and Buster Sword are games that I have a personal attachment to. Angeal to Zack, Zack to Cloud. The feelings of a man who was unable to live at the end of the battle are passed down in the form of a sword. It may seem like a conventional development for a fantasy game story, but I still can't help but feel passionate about the story of these three people. A sequel to the FF7 remake series is about to be released. The first installment that has already been released featured more scenes featuring Zack than the original version. I'm really looking forward to the release of the sequel release. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you soon.